did you always want to be a pilot, or when did you decide that you wanted to go that route?
It was a late discovery. I think when it was not until when I was maybe 16 or 17 year old that we had to, it must be 16 because we had to choose our subjects for year 11, year 12, which dictates what sort of degree you can apply for in university.
Oh.
So I discovered it then.
But was it because you were flying somewhere all the time, or yeah, what was it that sparked your interest in that?
General aviation is actually very common and popular in Australia. So during the
Okay.
time when I was discovering what to do, what I wanted to become in the future, I was walking around all these expos, like exhibitions for degree or like different industry exhibitions. And I came across a aviation expo, which I remembered I was handed out a voucher to go on take a trial flight. So a trial flight on a very small light aircraft. It was very cheap comparing now. So I took the voucher, I called the flying school and said, hey, I want to, why not come and have a tryout? So I booked an appointment. And I sort of fell in love with flying afterwards. So I
Hmm.
was like, oh, maybe I could become a pilot.
So was it something that I mean, because being a pilot, a female anyway, actually, too, is quite a difficult thing. Was this something that you had considered before going forward with it, or it just didn't matter to you at this point?
It didn't matter to me much at that point. When I told my mother about my decision to become a pilot and I would like to do an aviation degree, she was like, oh, wasn't expecting that. And she had her concerns, as you
Mhm.
correctly pointed it out. It's something rare and something different for like an Asian female to become an airline pilot, right? So, but she was very supportive, and she just told me, you just go try out, see how you go. So, yeah.
How did the process go? You decided you got a degree in aviation. You were doing remote work in your last year of the university because you were back in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Um, and what happens after you graduate? I mean, how do
Uh,
you apply to become a pilot or?
so I got into my current airline via the cadet program. So basically, once I graduated, I applied for their cadetship, got in, very fortunate, and then they had to send me overseas, actually back to Australia again, to
Oh,
undergo further training. If
oh, interesting.
that took about 60 weeks, so just a little bit more than a year. And then
Wow.
after I graduated from the cadetship, provided my performance was satisfactory, they would offer me employment as a second officer. So that was
Mm-hmm.
literally my path of joining the airline. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been with that same airline ever since.
Well, so you never really ever considered a different uh, airlines elsewhere, flying.
Not at
Yeah.
this stage. Never say never, but that
Mhm.
was mainly the reason I joined a cadetship because it was the only path for
Mhm.
myself to join, say, in the aviation industry, based back in my hometown, Hong Kong. I could have joined other cadetships offered by other airlines, say in Australia, or there were other ways of getting into airlines, such as you had to start with flying light aircraft, say you have to fly the crop dusters and build
Oh.
your hours and then join the airline directly as a pilot, qualified pilot.
Mhm.
But those paths would take a lot longer. So cadetship offered by major airlines in the world would be uh, a lot more easier and a lot more direct way of joining an airline.
So you said you've been with the airlines now ever since. So how long is that now?
I joined
How
them
many years?
as a cadet in 2008. I finished my training in 2010. So I literally joined the airline as a second officer in 2010. So I've been with the company now for 14 years.
Okay. And by the way, congratulations, because you made captain last
Thank
year,
you.
right? It's
Thank you.
almost been a year. I mean, that's got to be a big, huge thing. But you started as a second officer. So what's the difference between like a second officer getting up to captain? I mean, second officer, what did you do as a second officer?
Basically, second officers were cruise relief pilots, we call them. So they weren't responsible for any of the takeoff and landing duties in the front. We only needed second officers on, say, long haul flights, where say the flight's too long, so the captain or the first officer have to go to rest in flight breaks, because you just can't sit there for so many hours, right? So when one of them goes away for their little nap or their little rest, the second officer then sits in front, and what second officers do, they mainly help monitor the aircraft, do like fuel checks, monitor the flight path, and mainly a monitoring role. So more like an
Okay.
apprentice, also observing how the captain and FO, the first officer, do their jobs. So, not all, but most major airlines in the world have second officers. They're more like an apprentice, like working
Okay.
learning while you're working.
Okay. And is that how do you get to first officer? Is it just the basis of working so many hours, or you have to take tests that said, "Hey, I learned all this stuff while I was,
There's
second
tests
officer"?
involved in the end. It also depends on the company at the time. That I was a second officer for 3.5 years. Some took longer, some took shorter, depending on the economy at the time, whether the company needed first officers or not. If they were expanding very quickly, they need more first officers, then they probably will promote a lot earlier. But 3.5 years, which I did, was mostly the norm at the time. But there were no flying experience required to be promoted to a first officer. You do need to take exams and evaluations to see whether you meet the requirement, or the company requirement, for a first officer position. And subsequently, if you pass, you get the training footprint, the course to be upgraded to a first officer.
Okay. So then what's the difference with first officer is you're like a co-pilot then with the captain. You have
Correct.
a lot more.
Correct.
Okay. And how long were you a first officer?
I was the first officer for just under 10 years, so about nine and a half years, until I was promoted to captain last year.
Okay, is that a normal length of time too? Is it also based on economy and what happens?
Correct. Every airline is different. Some airlines, the promotion is a lot quicker. Some are a lot longer. But for my company, so I was, say, I served for about 13 years before I was promoted to captain. This is considered maybe slightly longer than normal, just because we had COVID-19, right, during the last 4 years, and things were slowed down dramatically, and things were put on a halt. So once COVID was finished, my company started promoting people again, and I was sort of the next in line. So I had an opportunity to go for the command.
We talked about first officer, second officer, and I guess, of course, the captain has got a lot more duties and stuff like that. But as a captain, what is the most important thing that you have to deal with? In terms of
you're basically the last line of defense. Supposedly, all the crew should know what they're doing, right? Because we have a set standard operating procedures, and everyone should be familiar with it. You, as a captain, should be the most familiar with it. And because you're the last line of defense, you really have to monitor everyone, whether they're doing it correctly or not, and give advice and take over if things are not going in the proper way.
Mhm.
because you're supposedly to have the most experience and the most capacity to manage the whole operation, because it's right from when you're on the ground still preparing for the aircraft, you're responsible for everyone, your crew, your passengers, and up until everyone gets off the aircraft.
Mhm. Being responsible for the whole crew and the whole flight. And I don't know, since you're fairly new as a captain, it's been less than a year, but has there been any time during any of the times that you've been on a plane, on a flight, whether it's at second, first, or captain, that something happened on the plane that you guys had to really handle or take care of, like whether it's like weather situation, really rough weather situations, or disruption on the flights or anything like that? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Nothing major technical issues or incidents, fortunately, for me at the moment, up until now. But turbulence and weather, they happen on a day-to-day basis. Like every flight has weather, has turbulence, and so we consider those as just minor, not normal conditions.
Okay.
But if you're talking about like major incidents or major technical, like what some of the airlines have been experiencing for the past month with Boeing aircraft, no, none of those, fortunately.
What is your favorite thing about being a pilot or working in
Despite having to work in some public holidays, I do have, say, the weekdays off. I have considerably, maybe more days off on average than, like, say, a normal office worker. So, which I could attend to some of the things, my hobbies and all that.
What's your typical schedule like? Do you, for a month?
I do about 80 to 90, I say outside COVID, 80 to 90 hours a month of flying, just airtime. So that does not count the time you spend preparing for the flight and wrapping up the flight afterwards. So I have on a range of 8 to 13 days off in a month where I'm completely free of duties. Yeah, that's a typical schedule. Also getting to meet new people every time. You don't fly with the same crew every time. Yeah, cabin crew or other pilots. So you hear new stories, you meet different people, and if you're finding your first officer very unbearable this flight, you probably won't see him ever again. And I think the best thing is you don't have to bring work home. After a flight, you just shut down and just go home.